Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to Women in Web3 podcast, the podcast that celebrates the inspiring stories of women who are shaping the future of technology. I'm your host, Kenneth Chu, and in each episode, we dive into the world of Web3 and explore the incredible work being done by women in blockchain, NFT, metaverse, and much more. As someone who is passionate about diversity and inclusion in tech, I created this podcast to showcase the achievement and challenges of women who are making waves in the industry. My goal is to inspire more women to get involved and help to build a world that is more equitable and inclusive for everyone. So let me introduce our guest for today's episode. With a proven track record in setting up financial functions from the ground up, Elaine is a finance and crypto native with a remarkable expertise in navigating the complexity of the digital financial landscape. Having spearheaded the establishment of financial operations adhering to the stringent local accounting regulation in Singapore for the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Elaine has demonstrated a unique blend of financial acumen and crypto prowess. Their extensive experience includes managing accounting for DeFi, decentralized finance transactions, especially those involved in O2C over-the-counter clients in borrowing and lending, derivative and custody domain. As a true crypto native since 2015, Elaine transitioned into becoming a DeFi farmer in August 2020, staying ahead of the curve in the dynamic world of blockchain finance. Elaine has also played a pivotal role in numerous valuation of mergers and acquisition, and their treasury management insights have proven invaluable in optimizing financial strategy. So I'm very happy to have Elaine that will be our guest for today. So without further ado, let me welcome Elaine. Hi Elaine, welcome.
Hi.
Good morning to
Hi.
you.
Nice to be here. Yeah, good morning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much for accepting my invitation to come on to share with more Web3 startup or
Mm-hmm.
even women in Web3 about what are the important things. So
Yep.
before we start, right, in fact, there's a
Yeah.
tradition that every
Okay.
guest get to answer the question of the day posted by the previous guest before we can
Okay.
officially start with the show.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
okay, are you ready to receive the question of the day?
Sure.
Okay, so the question of the day posted by previous guest is,
Mm-hmm.
what is your best collaboration in Web3 and what
Mm-hmm.
did you learn from it? Okay, I repeat again.
Mm.
What is your best collaboration in Web3 and what do you learn from it? So, do you need some time to think about it or you already have the answer for this?
I already have the answer for it. Okay. So I think the best collaboration that I have right now is actually my current company, Launch Factor. So I actually collaborated with some of the I think most expert people in the entire industry in terms of the back office accounting space in the Web3 side of things. And what did I learn from it? I learned a lot of things, including like how do you actually manage different projects from a different perspective, and then how do you actually look at things from a different scale, especially trying to actually help Web2 clients to bridge into the Web3 space. I think this is one of the bigger challenges that I learned, because coming in from the entire Web3 background itself, it's for me it's kind of like a challenge, sometimes when you have to understand how the Web2 they actually set up the company and the structuring of it. It's very different compared to Web3. So I think there's a lot to learn as well from the entire industry. Yeah.
Good. Thank you
Mm.
for sharing. And now we can officially kickstart with the show. So before we start, right, maybe you can share with the audience
Mhm.
what a bit about you, especially for those who are seeing you for the first time. Share a
Mhm.
bit about your background. What were you doing way before you get into the Web3 space, and how do you get started into Web3 space at the same time?
Okay, so how I got started in the Web3 space was, I think, quite interesting. So at that point in time, I was still working as an auditor back in PwC. And I always found it very challenging when I was doing my day-to-day job. So I think part of the work as an audit associate, you have to always vouch a lot of documents, and I find it very frustrating because there's a lot of vouching to be done. There's a lot of repetitive work. You have to keep digging for files here and there, and it's quite challenging and like taunting sometimes for me. So I actually stumbled upon blockchain. So one day I was just doing, some sort of research online. I come across blockchain. So that's how I got, that's how I actually go and read up on blockchain and understand about blockchain. And at the same time, I think it was also my first year into my auditing career, my first job actually, professional job. So, being as a very fresh person in the entire market, you kind of want to invest some part of your earnings, and you're trying to look for avenues to actually invest as well. So that's where I started googling different kind of investment, assets that maybe I could start, putting some money into, and came upon Bitcoin, and then at the same time I was doing research about shares and things like that. But the barrier of entry towards the traditional markets was very high compared to the buying a Bitcoin. So I decided to just, maybe just try out something, just buy a bit, test out and see. And then that's how I got started in the entire space. And then after buying my first Bitcoin, and then I started Googling more about it, doing more research about it. And then that's where I found out that, hey, actually blockchain is quite interesting. Data can be actually placed onto the blockchain, but the moment once you place something onto the blockchain, it's immutable, it's irreversible. So everything is there. Because every time, like when I was doing my audit work, I always question myself. It's like, what happens if, one day my clients decide to lose all these documents, or what happens if, let's say, all the documents in the office, say for example, touch wood, if a fire happened, and then all the documents there just suddenly disappear. No one have any more records of the document already. Even though you can say, yeah, there are ways that you can print it out via different system and things like that. It's going to take a while. So when I stumbled upon blockchain, this was really very, very interesting. And ever since that day, I think I never looked back. And then, I just started doing a lot of research more into blockchain. And then subsequently, I think in 2018, when I was still doing my audit career, so Binance, they actually looked for me. It's like, hey, I got this very interesting proposition for you. We are starting to, we want to actually incorporate, an entity in Singapore. Are you actually keen to join us? And I was like, without any hesitation, it's like, yeah, let's do it. And then I decided to, quit my audit career, and then I went on to, full-time 100% the Web3 space to actually start helping them to build it. And then I actually built up the entire finance function for the Singapore entity, and then subsequently moved on to the APAC region. So that's how I got started in the Web3 space. Yeah.
Wow. It seems that because I think the audience might be thinking
Mm,
that like what is the connection right between
mhm,
accounting, CopSec, and also
mhm,
into Web3. But I think
mm,
fundamentally, right, like you
mhm.
mentioned, a lot of businesses they want to go onto Web3,
Yep.
like the Web2 companies going to Web3. So what would you say are the common challenges for Web2 companies to move into Web3? What are their challenges, and what, especially in your area of
Mhm,
expertise, right?
mhm. So I think for a lot of Web2 companies, I think understanding how the Web3 space behave is, I think, the major challenge. I think in terms of the tech itself, in terms of, which particular network to use. So say, for example, if let's say you're a Web2 company and you probably heard a lot about different networks out there, for example, Ethereum, you have your BNB, you have, like Polygon, you have, AVAX. So these are the like networks out there. So which particular network should I use, to actually come into the Web3 space? And, how can I actually transform my business, right, to actually come into the Web3 space? So I think the first thing is, I think, of course, is the tech side of things. The tech part is, you require a lot of effort to actually go and understand the tech itself, because it's quite challenging, right? And then the second part, towards the tech side of things is that how do I actually integrate both sides together? I have a Web2 traditional business and I have the Web3 business as well. And then, ultimately at the end of the day, for most business owners, I will ask them is like, what's your plan? Like, why do you actually want to come into the Web3 space? Is it because, you want to do another round of fundraise, or, is that something that you are really interested in the tech side of things, whereby, you probably want to secure some of your data and things like that, or, you have some sort of interest, in the community, in the Web3 space. So I think a lot of times for founders is I think the tech side of things, especially on determining whether is the tech really suitable for the Web2 companies, right? And then the other part will come in is that how do you actually do up the financials for once you start accepting, for example, cryptocurrencies, right? Because some Web2 companies, they are actually looking to accept cryptocurrencies as a form of payment. So say, for example, how do I actually book in revenue if I receive it in Bitcoin or Ethereum? So things like how do I value the tokens itself, or how do I actually report the numbers in my financial statements? And then sometimes we have even Web2 companies that look for us. I think I need help with setting up my entire back office system in terms of the crypto side of things. How do we actually go around it? Because I think in the Web3 space, the key differentiator here is that crypto is actually tradable 24/7. So the price fluctuation of every assets is quite tricky in terms of the accounting side, whereby you have to put in the numbers into real time. So I think that's another challenge. I think the last challenge for Web2 companies to come into the Web3 space, especially if they're looking to tokenize, do tokenization. So in terms of how do you actually set up the entire legal structure to actually assist with that, is also part of the major challenge for a lot of Web2 companies. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Because when you have shared so much, right? Well,
Yeah.
my next question, I think it will help a lot of them, is like why, because you
Mm-hmm.
already mentioned that you have clients coming to you that they want to go into Web3, but
Yep.
what would be the reason for most of them, why would they go in, or even current businesses to go into Web3, and why
Mm-hmm.
should they go in? I heard a bit about the accepting payment,
Mm-hmm.
because there are some people, maybe their clients, or even the investors, right? They want to
Mm-hmm.
invest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why should they go into Web3, and what are the
Mm-hmm.
benefit of Web3 for business owners?
Okay, so I think for Web2 companies, it really comes in from which kind of direction that they want to pivot to, right? For most of the Web2 companies that actually approach us, they are actually looking more towards on how they can actually accept crypto payments, and how should they actually book the numbers in correctly. Sometimes some Web2 companies, they are also looking to actually have some sort of Web3 element, like for example a certain tag or certain sort of a certain sort of exposure into the Web3 space under their particular group, so that they can actually have some sort of exposure in the Web3 space. I think the Web3 space is still at a very early stage right now, and a lot of people are actually trying to understand Web3. Right, what is Web3 all about? How can I actually bring more value to my current business, to my current consumers, to my current customers? Like the way how I see the next 5 years down the road is a lot of Web2 business will probably have Web3 technology as the background. For example, like they probably have another set of data on chain, on the public chain, but the users themselves, the retail users out there, probably have no idea that actually their data is actually back on the public chain and things like that. So that's another aspect that I see in the next maybe 5 years down the road, things will start to change as well, right? In terms of Web3, for business owners, it really dependent on them as well, right? Like what exactly do they really want to drive out from their particular business? But most of the time, the business owners that look for us, they're actually looking to drive up the valuation of their own companies. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you talk about
Mm.
valuation, right, I think that also bring us to the topic of this episode. But
Mm-hmm.
before that, right, a bit a sidebar,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which is this question I had it in mind whenever
Mm-hmm.
I interview my guest on Women in Web3 podcast, is
Mm-hmm.
that why do you accept my invitation to be my guest on Women in Web3 podcast? Like coming from men, right, hosting
Mm-hmm.
a Women in Web3 podcast. So why do you accept the invitation? Just curious about it, because I haven't got the chance to really ask.
Okay. So I think I mean, as a woman myself, in the Web3 space, I think it's something very different, right? Because Web3 space, a lot of the times that you go out to events and things like that, there are a lot of guys. But for me, I think it's more towards the interest in the particular space. And I actually do see that gender equality in every single industry out there. And for me personally, is I've chosen this path because I have very strong interest in Web3 in this particular space. So that's why I'm here to support, right? Like any woman as well out there. Like if you have any issues or things like that, you can just drop me a DM on my LinkedIn. I think if I do see your DM, I'll definitely reply to you. See how we can help each other out. Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's not really
It's,
because who is hosting, right? It's just because
yeah, it's
it's
just because it's woman empowerment kind of thing, right?
mm.
So I think women is always in the Web3 space particularly, when you go to events, it's I mean, in the early stage, I think like maybe 2015 or 2017, you actually see like 95% of males. And
Mm.
now it's getting better. The diversity is getting better. So now you're seeing at least about 80, or sometimes certain events it's like 70. So it's getting better and better. So I guess more and more women are actually coming into the Web3 space, which is pretty good. Yeah.
So whether is it a male host, female
Mm.
host, it doesn't makes
It
much
doesn't really
difference for
make a
you. Okay.
difference. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good to know that
Mm.
the reason why you
Hmm.
you want to advocate or even champion
Yeah.
this is not because of Kenneth, because of
Hmm.
whoever that's hosting, but it's also because very much that you want to share what you know and also support whoever that's coming in for the
Yes.
women. I think the key thing is also to know that there are women who are interested in Web3, like for your case,
Yeah.
right? Like how does it link back to your profession, which is
Hmm.
accountancy, which is CopSec? I think it's important for a lot of women out there to really understand, oh, how is it relatable? How does it link with Web3? And
Hmm.
how can they make use of their current expertise, domain expertise,
Yeah.
into Web3? I think this is the bridge that I hope to be able to do over here in
Hmm.
Women in Web3 podcast. So thank
Yeah.
you for answering this question. So I got
Yeah.
really got curious about it. So coming
Mm.
back, and that is also very important to really understand the back office, right? The back
Hmm.
office essential, boosting valuation in Web3 startup. Like you mentioned, a lot of your clients or even for companies from Web2 to go to Web3, they
Hmm.
want to have maybe to raise fund and
Mm.
also to revalue their company.
Yes.
So what are the common mistakes, right? Because I think in our previous when we first discussed over Zoom, you were
Hmm.
sharing with me that why you want to come in because of a
Mm.
lot of mistakes, the common mistakes of
Yeah.
startup, right? So what
Yeah.
are the common mistakes for of Web3 startup, especially in the back office setup? What are the common mistakes that you see? You can share with us.
Okay, so I think in the Web3 startup space, I think there's two parts to things. So one part is the very technical guys. They are the tech guys that, they probably know how to do all the tech stuff, but they have maybe very, very little knowledge in terms of running the back office. So maybe you can have a very, very nice project, a very, very sexy project out there. But when it comes to valuation, if let's say you, for example, don't have proper incorporation of an entity, you don't have a proper legal jurisdiction, things like that, it's very hard to carry out certain operations. And then coming in from financial side of things, in terms of accounting, whether do you actually do your bookkeeping correctly, how often do you actually do your management reporting. So when you start to do fundraising with investors will definitely ask you for your financials, whether it can be a quarterly financials, it can be monthly financials. So every different investors out there in the market, they would want some sort of metrics, to actually see how well your company is doing and things like that. So a lot of times from the tech Web3 founders, they usually struggle with the financial side of things because even as founders themselves, they are actually very focused on the business itself, like for example growing the business, increasing the revenue and things like that. And a lot of times when the company reach a certain stage, it's very challenging, right? Whereby when you see your accounts and you have no idea what's going on with the accounts, and probably your protocol, your project out there has been already there for 2 to 3 years, and then right now you suddenly realize, oh, there is a change in some of the jurisdiction laws, or some of the actually financial compliance side of things, whereby this year, you have to submit your tax return, and you have to start doing all the paperwork. And then a lot of times all these founders, they get into a very panic stage because you are trying to comply, right? But you have no idea where to start. So I think in terms of early stage founders, if you are planning to run a project, please go out and then get help, right? In terms of setting up your basic stuff, for example, your legal structuring, right? The first step is always legal structuring. You need to figure out where exactly do you want to incorporate your company, and then where do you actually want to run your company's operations, right? And then the second part will be coming in terms of setting up your bookkeeping side of things. Make sure that you will get a proper bookkeeper that understands Web3, because this is quite critical for, I think, a lot of the Web3 projects out there. I'd say it's actually quite easy to get a bookkeeper out there for a traditional setup, where you only deal with fiat in and out. But once you start doing, for example, more complex stuff like DeFi, or real world assets itself, in tokenized real world assets, so it's very different in terms of accounting it in the Web3 perspective, right? So the make sure that the bookkeeper that you get is someone that's very familiar with how to do accounting in the Web3 space. And then lastly, of course, you have to manage your treasury, right? Once you do your fundraising and things like that, you have to have proper finances, like proper controls in place whereby you don't overspend and you don't overblast your budget, right? So that's where I see, the three common mistakes that people usually make. Yeah.
I
Mm,
think the other thing is also a lot of time, right? Like startup founders, right? Be it
mm,
whether Web 2 or Web 3, right? More often they are bootstrapping, right? They will
yes,
get whoever resources or their friends who
correct.
know a bit of accounting to become the CFO
Mm,
and stuff. But I would say, right, like you mentioned, right, it's always better whether they are raising funds or not.
mm,
It's also important for them to have the back office set up properly,
correct,
because you never know that one day you might be approached by investors seeing your business, they'll be observing,
correct.
and you may not want investor, but when they come to you, right,
Mm,
and that's where we call it, like Singapore, we call it kalang kabut, right? Starting
yeah,
while you try to shuffle, then you look in your account, then you realize, oh my god, it's
yes,
like my account is
yes,
is all crap, because we never taught it, because they are always hustling, right, bootstrapping
correct.
to day, they just leave it there, and they're
Mm,
not reporting until when they need to report yearly, right? Then
correct.
they start to work on it, which might be a
Yes.
bit too late, because you never know when will the
Mm,
investors start knocking on your door,
yeah,
and maybe
correct.
they want to value your company, and because your
Yes.
accounts is not done properly,
Mm,
and you might not get a very good valuation, right?
correct,
So you
correct.
might at a loss. So for example, for startup, when they
Mm,
are starting from zero, right,
mm,
um how would they know what are the things that they need to have? So what are the areas would you recommend startup to pay attention in their back office, especially very beginning,
mhm,
where they may not have the finances or
mm,
budget to consult someone like you,
mhm,
because definitely there's a cost to it, right?
yeah.
And also, what are the, maybe like you mentioned, right? They might be going to a normal accounting firm or
Mhm,
COPSEC, right? And
mm,
not realizing that they need to have someone who know about blockchain, know
mhm,
about tokenomics and
mhm,
all that stuff, right? So
yeah.
how can they, I would say, filter or really qualify, or
Mhm.
what are the areas that they should take note of?
Okay, so I think for any founders or potential founders, upcoming founders that actually want to enter into the Web3 space, or any sort of industry, I think the first thing is always uh decide where you want to run your operations, right? You need to have a legal jurisdiction, right? I mean, because for the tech space, it's a bit different. The Web3 space is like I just press one button, then I can launch a token already. So it doesn't matter like where I am at, as long as I press the button, there's internet connection, I can launch a token, and then my business is running. So that's the tricky part, right? Where you don't have, a legal jurisdiction already. So as your business grow, right? If you don't have a legal jurisdiction, it gets more and more complicated, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, you need to build your team, you need to hire your team, expand your team. So I think the first things first is always understand the legal jurisdiction. Where do you actually really want to incorporate the company? And then, follow up from there. Second part after that is on the financial side of things. So financials, I think a lot of times business owners think is very easy lah. My business haven't really kickstart, it's still small, don't really need to bother. But a lot of times, I think you have point out something very important, which is on the investor side of things. But another part of it is towards the regulators as well, right? Like for example, if let's say you have incorporated a company in Singapore for example, but every year, you're supposed to file in your taxes. But for example, touch wood, I mean, like you've forgotten to do it. So, having someone, an expert in the particular back office side of things, they'll prompt you, hey, it's tax filing season, how are things going? Maybe you might want to look into your numbers and things like that, start preparing for it. Because you don't want to be, facing a situation by, on the last day of submission, right? And then everybody tries to do the last minute thing, go into the server and then start
Yeah,
pressing submission, and then the
and
server
hang,
hang, and then after that you miss the deadline and things like that.
and you
So
get penalty, right? The worst
yeah,
part is getting
yes,
penalty for.
penalty, correct. And then you already prepare everything, and then you can still get penalty because of the deadline and things like that. So I think for a lot of startup founders themselves, I think they are also very busy to actually sort out these things. But please go and look for help, right? Because I think in the early stages, a lot of times they will miss out on all these things, and then as the business grow bigger and bigger, the transactions get more and it's more and more complex, then they'll start scratching their heads. They're like, actually, how do we actually go about this entire thing? And I think this particular business, how I probably haven't done much bookkeeping onto it. Could you actually help me with it? So it's good to have a proper finance hygiene in the early stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is also something that a lot of staff founder they think it's okay, I don't need
Yes.
because I'm not starting, right? But I
Yeah.
think I because for my case I'm a
Mm-hmm.
very good example because I accidentally stepped into starting my own business because
Mm-hmm.
I got laid off and
Mm-hmm.
my clients just suggested why not I start my own company. So I do not have a very good bookkeeping,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I'm not very like finance is not my forte, right? Not my
Yeah.
expertise. So that's why we always chuck it one side as
Mm.
founders, right? We always chuck it one side. Don't go and talk about it. And because in the very beginning I started as a sole proprietorship.
Mm.
So you never really think about it. You just
Yeah.
do whatever simple accounting, right?
Mm.
And then when you realize that you need to incorporate, and that's why when you start the incorporation, that's where you realize that you need to do all these finances. And like you
Yeah.
mentioned, right, startup founders, we are so busy with the day to day, right?
Yeah.
We might not be sensitive to all the deadlines for the
Correct.
regulatory part. I went to submit your tax, went to submit this and that.
Yeah.
Um, and also sometimes we might not even submit correctly and we
Mm.
might not even know where to start, what are the requirements, right?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that is where like you mentioned at the very last minute when you try to figure out and you are not able to get help also
Mm.
because when you are when it's much closer to the maybe the year end or the financial year, a lot of accounting firm corpsec they'll be very busy, right,
Yes.
submitting and all that. So they may not have time, even you have like the help, right? They may not even have time to really attend to your need
Mm.
because there's so much things to do. And if you're
Correct.
starting from zero, right, it's even
Mm.
harder for them to support you. So I
Yes.
think it's also a reminder for all the startup founder because I got a lot of penalty because of my
Yeah.
like forget this, forget that, last
Yeah.
minute. That's why whoever that start any company, right, I would really remind them, or even some of the companies I mentor, right, I also
Mm.
tell them that make sure you get your finances because it is how should I put it is quite hard pain, right, as a business
Mm.
owner because your revenue is very important, and
Yes.
sometimes your revenue sometimes it might be not very good, and
Mm.
that month, right, you just happen to
Mm.
pay the penalty, and it was like,
Yes.
oh, you felt so hard pain,
I know.
like
Yes.
money go out like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they may not feel it at the very beginning, but when it start to roll, right, you realize,
Yeah.
okay, I've accumulated how many years of penalty, then now I
Correct.
need to pay, if not, whatever.
Yeah.
I think the regulation part, because every time is changing, and
Yes.
you touch on like Web3, right?
Mm.
There's no real what you call that, the legal side of thing that you need to, but also you have to also make sure that whatever accounting that you do have to
Mm.
comply, right, whatever
Yes.
activity you do in the Web3, because it's still a very new space
Mm.
for maybe the legal side or for regulatory to come in to really say, okay, you need to do this, need to do that,
Mm.
right? So
Yep.
in that case, right, how would you like maybe for maybe for startup founders, right, what would
Mm.
you say that the most important thing for them in setting up their back office?
I think setting up their back office, financially, get a good bookkeeper. Make sure that your bookkeeper is someone reliable as well, right? Sometimes out there we do hear complaints, especially in the Web3 space, because it's a bit tricky when it comes to dealing with tokens. So sometimes you receive income in tokens, and then you have to pay tax on it. Then they will start questioning, hey, my tokens I receive in crypto, right? It's Bitcoin, for example. Then, but I pay tax to IRAS is actually in cash. So how do I actually go about it? So sometimes in terms of even managing your treasury or your cash flow itself, you have to account into all these things whereby, I think the tax filing is coming soon. I have to pay X amount of tax. This is the so-called estimated amount right now. So I should actually allocate some sort of money in fiat, for example, in the bank accounts to actually pay for my tax. So there are certain things that we actually do remind our clients as well. Oh yeah, make sure you have this amount sitting in the bank for your tax and things like that. Yeah.
I remember previously you did mention about like having a wallet, right? I mean the
Yes.
company, the corporate wallet and all that, so
Mm,
that the finances are cleaner in
correct.
terms of. So what would that like, that means it has to be clean, and whatever that's due with cash will be on cash, and whatever
Mm,
that is on cryptos, then it will be handled by another set.
correct. Yeah, that's right. So for example, like the wallet part of things, so we do help a lot of our clients, right, to actually set up their so-called crypto wallet, right, and then put in the proper policies in place. I think one of the main key things that I always find in the space with Web3 projects is that they have different founders, and then at the end of the day, you just hand over your wallet keys to one founder, and then whenever there's a dispute, right, and then the other the key is with one founder, and then they'll start fighting over the assets in the wallet and things like that. So there are ways in the Web3 space whereby there's this multi-sig part of things where you can have up to X amount of people signing off on the wallet to release a certain transaction. So this is where we come in, and then we actually inform the team itself. Okay, so how many people do you actually want to have access to this particular wallet, and what is your policy around it, right? Because as the company grows bigger and bigger, there's so many people in the company that you also need to have proper policies in place. For example, who manages what, and who is allowed to disperse how much. So that's where we come in with proper financial governance, and help all these Web3 companies to actually scale up. But I think from a very very early stage, proper hygiene, for example, if you do have take in like different sort of cryptocurrency for different sort of revenue stream, please my advice is actually to do up one wallet for one particular revenue stream, so it's actually easier to manage as well. Yeah.
Wow, I think these are areas that startup founder may not really foresee, and I think it's
Mm,
also important for them to seek help, especially people who are already in there, like for you guys, to really advise them, or even to do up the policy properly, right? So that when
yes.
things happen, everything is in place rather than wait for things to
Correct.
happen and then they start
Yeah.
to figure things out, which might be too late or which might be very time sensitive, right? At times, especially
Correct.
receiving payment and all that. So
Yes.
and the other thing I think maybe we could point out is also the snowballing effect, because you may think,
Mm,
oh, maybe I have one or two, maybe three transaction in that, right? But as
mm,
it goes, right, it start to snowball. And if
correct.
you want
Yeah.
to reverse the clock and to really
Yes.
start to clean up, right, I think it's
Yeah.
even harder, right?
Yes, it is. It's actually quite challenging because a lot of times some of our clients, they come to us, they will tell us actually I have like 4 years of accounts or 3 years of accounts that it's I don't know how to account it for. Like, can you help me with that? So these are like some of the examples that we actually really do see every day in the Web3 space.
Mm.
So I mean, they have done very well from a project perspective. They have done really really well. But I think coming in terms whereby they are seeking to actually do the next round of fundraising, right? Sometimes having a very clean finance, like you have some sort of metrics, some sort of numbers to show to your VCs and investors, it might be more helpful, right? And you don't have to spend so much time, or engage a third party person out there, sit down there, pay additional money to clean up the entire accounts. So I think that's something for founders to think about as well. I think for me is you spend a bit of money in the early stage, to have proper accounting set up, rather than you pay a very huge sum of money for someone to come in at a later stage and clean up everything. So, and sometimes for founders is tight deadlines, right? Especially when your potential investors is actually pushing you very hard. It's a struggle actually for a lot of founders out there. And then when they tell us like, okay, it's okay, you just clean up the finance for me, we will pay you X amount of money. But sometimes running a professional firm and things like that, we also do struggle with time constraint. I'll be very upfront with them. You have 4 years, 3 years accounts here. It's not possible for me to finish everything in 2 weeks, right? I probably need more time. So that's where we actually come in and actually advise them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you touched
Mm,
on a very important point, is like the timeline given to you guys is whether is it practical. Like
yeah.
sometimes they really very last minute, only left with one month. They
Yeah.
expect you to churn out that or maybe to clean up the 4 years of bookkeeping, right?
Yes.
And sometimes you also have to dig because you might find, hey, where is this? Where is this
Yeah.
transaction? Where
Correct.
does it go? Where the money? And it takes time, right, to really dig
Correct.
into it. And the founders may have long forgotten. They may not even
Mm.
remember last week what came in, what went out, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's important to really be realistic. And in order not to have all this last minute, right, is
Mm.
to set up properly. And talking about setting up properly, right? Maybe you can give the audience a
Mm.
ballpark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like especially in Singapore, to get the basic things set up. What would
Mm-hmm.
be roughly the cost if you were able to share, or it really varies?
Okay, so I think it depends on which particular uh, niche area, right, they are at in the Web3 space, because I think some of the business models, I think even though they are Web3 space, they are actually a SaaS recurring model and things like that. So
Mm,
the fees are actually very different. And then because they are still receiving money in fiat or even in
mm,
crypto, so the model is a bit different. But like for example, DeFi protocols, it's a bit more tricky because when you do like borrowing and lending, and when you have LP tokens and things like that, how do you actually account for it? It's another set of problems by itself.
mm,
And then you also have like liquid staking accounts, I mean liquid staking companies, out there, projects out there, where it's a bit different as well in terms of how they run their business. So different sort of businesses, they have a different sort of pricing. It's actually being determined by the complexity and the number of hours that we need to go in and actually help them.
mm,
Ultimately, I think for our company, and I think for most of the professional firms out there, it's always on a number of hours basis. Like how many
mm.
hours do we really need to put in to actually help you all, fix up all the problems? Yeah.
Yeah. So if let's say if you were to give
Mm,
a range, like for my case, right, I have
mm,
no idea like how much you would take for example, a few $100 a year, a
mm,
few $1,000s a year. What is roughly the range, especially for those like you mentioned, aspiring Web3 startup or any
mhm,
entrepreneur, right, out there?
mm. So I think, of course, first things first. If let's say, for example, setting up your own accounting system, the most basic one that we do is actually around $300,
Mm,
right? And then it can go up all the way to $3,000. It determines based on the complexity and the number of accounts that you have to have, the type of different revenue streams that you have to have. So, for example, a very, very basic one for someone that doesn't know anything, just want to incorporate a company,
mm,
it starts at $300,
mm,
just the one-off fee, right, to
mm,
set up the entire accounting software, as well as setting up certain codes for your tax and things like that. If let's say you do have to pay tax, right? After that, in terms of bookkeeping, we are actually very quite reasonable, I think, out there compared to a lot of people out there. We are slightly higher than the traditional Web2 companies,
mm,
but we are actually charging a premium because of the complexity of the Web3 side of things, where you have to go on chain and look for certain transactions. So that's where the I think the team is actually getting paid on the number of hours of
mm,
work that they actually put
mm,
in into looking for all those transactions. So say for example, if a company or a project has about 200 transactions a month, we are actually charging them about I think about 1,005 US dollars. Yeah, so it's around that kind of range. Yeah.
mm.
Mm,
So in that case, for example, if let's say I have no idea, that means
mm,
I have this maybe whether is it DeFi or not, right?
mm,
How would I know roughly how much to really put aside? That means to budget into the
mm,
accounting, setting up the back office properly. So do you guys do like a consultation call or
mhm.
discovery call, or maybe over a chit chat to understand what they really need before you propose?
Yes,
How
definitely.
does it
So
work now?
yeah, so I think for me, I think for all the founders as well, we actually sit down with any Web3 startup that is looking for this kind of service provisioning. Where we sit down there and have a 1 hour call to actually understand their business, and then give them a proposal on actually how you should actually maybe do up your finances. So in the early stage one, of course, we will come in and help you with your legal entity structuring. Which jurisdiction is actually has more incentive towards your particular business, or is there any tech grants given out by certain jurisdictions that
Mm,
is actually able to help save costs in running your business. And then after that, we'll move on to the bookkeeping side of things, and then of course, your financial regulatory side of things, your tax filings and things like that. So these are like the basic areas that we actually help them with. And then I think for some of the so-called mature projects out there, we will actually come in and tell them, oh, like maybe you need help in terms of valuing your company. So this is how you should actually do up your finances, or there are this part of tech side of things that you have. Do you want to actually consider, registering it for IP to boost up
Mm.
your valuation? So things like that. So this is what we actually help our clients. Yeah. So it depends on which particular project that's out there and how mature they are. We give them the appropriate advice. Yeah.
Mm. So when you talk about that 1 hour, right?
Mm.
Is that 1 hour being charged, or that 1 hour will be
Oh, it's complimentary.
okay?
Complimentary. Yeah.
Good, good, good. So because I think a lot of
Mm.
startup, they know nothing at all. They are starting from
Yes.
zero, right? They it
Yes.
might be expensive even to
Mm.
talk to you guys to really find out, because they do not know anything, especially in the
Yeah.
finance. But they may have a fantastic idea about how
Mm.
to move forward with it, even set up. Because I would say a lot of, because there are more and more people who want to jump into it, right? And they
Mm.
want to do it themselves.
Yep.
And sometimes do it yourself, right? It's good to save on that cost, but it's also good to understand what it takes to have it properly done. When
Yes.
we talk
Correct.
about valuation, you don't have
Yes.
to wait until the last minute. So more or less, we have already covered what are the common mistakes of our Web3 startup, especially in the back
Mm-hmm.
office setup. So is there any other things that you want them to take note, or any advice for the Web3 startup?
I think for any Web3 startup founders out there, I mean, go out there, talk to as many people, right? Understand what exactly you want to do from the. I mean, in back office is just one part of things, right? Ultimately, how a business part is another side of things. But talk to as many back office providers out there to see what is the best solution for your company, because ultimately at the end of the day, having a very good team behind you with sufficient experience, might be actually more cost saving in the longer run.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think you are right also, because if let's say they are looking at raising funds, right,
Mm.
eventually they will need to invest a portion into it. I think on the
Correct.
long run also. So
Yes.
even from the very beginning, right, all these
Mm.
costs you can't save is to really
Yes.
have a good footing, so that it will
Correct.
make your life easier. Unless
Yes.
today you say, oh, I will not raise any fund, then you can just go
Yeah.
and anyhow
Do
do your
whatever. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But
Yes.
whatever you do, right, ultimately you still comply to the business side of it, right? That means the
Mm.
finances, your reporting to ACRA, to the
Correct.
income tax, IRAS, and all that. I think
Mm.
it's important, unless you're very good at it, or you have someone that is really of a big help,
Mm.
that to do for you, or you have a fantastic CFO that is experienced.
Yeah.
If not,
Correct.
then I would say always go out and seek help,
Yes, I
to
think it's
talk
more
to
towards
people.
a time cost thing. Like, for example, one day I only have 24 hours, right? How many hours do I really want to spend on handling finances? Should I do it myself, right, to
Hmm.
save costs, or should I actually, pay a bit of
Outsource.
money to an outsourced person that knows their stuff in the particular space and then let them handle it, right? Because
Hmm.
ultimately, at the end of the day, we are limited with time. 24 hours a day sometimes also not enough,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I
So,
think you put out a
yeah,
very good point. Is that as an entrepreneur, right? You cannot
yeah,
do everything yourself,
correct.
right?
Yeah,
And unless you just want to be a self-employed, right? Or you are
yes,
happy do it all by yourself, like one
yeah,
man show or one woman show, then I think
mm,
you can go ahead and do. But if you really look at the business side of thing, right,
mm,
you have never seen any successful entrepreneur or successful businessman, right, that is doing accounts, that is doing operation, that is doing
correct.
everything by themselves. It's always split
Yeah,
up to different departments, right? And that is
yes.
the reason where you can scale if you want to do
Yes.
it big. Yeah, unless you want to be a one-man show all the way, you like that kind of lifestyle, you like that
Mm,
kind of hustle. I think, like you mentioned, right, really talk to a lot of back office professionals, really
mm,
speak to them, and really get a good insight of what is needed. And if you're in Web3, definitely go to people who already had helped a lot of Web3 startup to really set up their back office, like for
mm.
you guys, and Launch Factor,
Yep.
that you guys are really expert. One of the, I would say, the one of the OG, right? Really to
Yep.
step into that. And from hearing from you, if let's say for any female founders, definitely I think you are one of the best person to go out to, because
Mm-hmm.
as a
Yeah.
female founder yourself, I think you do aware what are the
Mm.
challenges and struggles, right?
Yeah.
So talking about that, now we will change a bit of gear, really
Mm-hmm.
to focus on you
Mm-hmm.
as a female founder, as a woman
Mm-hmm.
in Web3. So what would you say are the, have you faced any common challenges in the Web3 space? And if you have personally experienced, can you share with
Mm-hmm.
us and how you overcome it? If you don't have, it's also good to share on that
Mm.
part too.
I think for me it's I think probably a bit different lah. So I take things with a very open mind, right? I wouldn't say that being a woman I face a lot of challenge and things like that. I mean as a founder or anyone you go out there, you definitely face rejection. No
Mm,
matter whatever you do, but it's just the way how you look at it. In terms of biasness or whatever. I mean sometimes of course that a particular role is technically more towards a gender bias kind of thing.
mm,
But for me personally, I think the world is getting more and more open, right?
mm,
It's not like back in the past where only a male can actually lead a company. Nowadays you actually see a lot of female CEOs
yeah,
coming out as well. So I think it's just how we actually tune our mindset, right? For example, if this company, if, like they said that they want to hire a male for this role, fine, it's okay. You can still find a similar role out there that probably wants to hire a female
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So
Wow,
it's
that's
just how you look at things. Yeah.
well, I think that's a very good mindset because I've been in this space for a while, worked with a lot
Mm,
of women for the past 14 years, and I realized that your perspective, your mindset is pretty good, and instead of really delving into it, right? Because that, like, everybody have their own choice, right? Whether I want
correct.
to hire a female CEO or male
Mm,
CEO is my choice, right? And
correct.
it's not about whether me being sexist or me
Yeah.
being gender biased or not. It's
Yeah.
that's my choice, right?
Correct.
Whether for example, like a parent, right? Whether I want my eldest son or my youngest son to inherit
Mm,
my property, my assets, right?
yeah.
It's my choice, right? I get to
Yes.
say, right?
Yes.
Definitely, I will favor some of them. I will not favor
Mm,
some of them. I like some of them. I don't like some of
mm,
them. Or they may not be the one that's suitable for this role,
mm.
maybe because this role requires them to work with like a male dominated environment,
Yeah.
so it might be challenging for them, right? Unless
Yes.
they have proven themselves to be able
Yes.
to hustle and really to maybe a female CEO might be a good thing to really
Mm,
soften the whole culture. I do not
correct.
know, but I think like what you mentioned, right? It's always on the back. Why are they hiring people, or why are they doing this? Like for
Mm,
example, why am I having this podcast is because intentionally I want to showcase and spotlight more women
mm,
that is thriving in Web3. Like for your case,
mm,
I felt that it's not a lot of women that gets it, right? The
mm,
tokenomics, even in the financial side of it, and
mm,
how did you weave in your domain expertise into
mm.
Web3, and how why you want to help the Web3 founders also, because you
Yeah.
see a lot of these cases happening,
Yeah.
and because of your interest in Web3, you felt that you can support them and help them to get a good start, because you see a lot of them couldn't get their finances up.
Mm,
They like when the investor asked whether, oh, are you profiting? They were like, am I profiting at the first
yeah.
place, right? And then they come
Correct.
out with one figure. Then when we talk to the investors say that like your accounts
Mm.
doesn't it's not profiting,
Yeah. It's not.
and
Yeah.
how
It's not
come you do not
right.
know it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that
Exactly.
will make investor lose faith in them, right? In them.
Mm. Yep.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
It's good to hear from you that you do not have all the challenges, or you look at it at a different perspective,
Yeah.
and then that's why I think that is one of the way that how you overcome it,
Mm.
right? They may be conscious by gender
Yeah.
bias, but you look at it, maybe it's not
It's
the
not.
one for
Yeah.
me. Yeah,
Yeah. It's not.
maybe I
Maybe
could
it's just
just
not
stick
for
it out.
me. Yeah.
That's not
Correct.
for you. I think things happen for a reason.
Yeah, things happen for a reason. Like, just, if, someone is going to judge you because you're a female and it's maybe say that you're not suitable for the role, maybe you're just not a fit for the role, move
Yeah,
on, find something
it's
else to
like
do.
a
Um,
relationship, right? It's like a
correct.
relationship, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Find something else to do. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you are, who you are, right? People will,
Mhm.
if someone really, appreciates your skill sets, right? They would appreciate you like entirely by themselves. So this is where I look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good perspective. I think for
Mm,
the women that's watching, or female founders that's watching, I think it's important to really understand that this is not the end, right? This person may not
yes.
be the last person that you contact with. There are a
Yeah.
lot of people out there, like billions of people
Correct.
out there that may understand your
Mm.
intention, your
Yes.
passion, your vision, and they will come into it. Like for my case, right, when I started
Mm.
this journey of championing mothers to be entrepreneurial, empowering
Mm.
women and all that, a lot of women don't see. They don't understand. But I think when you hang on, right, you
Mm.
will attract people. And when you put yourself out there, definitely people will be able to resonate with you. And the
Mm.
more you articulate, the more you know how to really speak your mind and really to
Mm.
share, I think you will attract people that you want to attract. So
Yeah.
don't have to be afraid. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot for sharing. And I know time really flies.
Mm.
Maybe I want to hear from your perspective, right? In
Mm.
this case, what would you say is the role of women in Web3 playing in shaping the future of businesses and society?
I think every woman out there, plays a critical role, right? I think to say that, the gender change, like for example, like women supposed to stay at home, take care of the kids and things like that. It's slowly starting to shift, right? Even for example, like working, right? Like before pre-COVID, everybody used to go to office. Now post-COVID, everybody has the flexibility to work from home.
Yeah.
So I think, moving forward, I think doesn't really matter where you are, what kind of gender that you are, but ultimately at the end of the day, you need to have some sort of diversity, and I think women come in into a very strong play in terms of uh, diversifying out certain gender biasness, in terms of even skill sets. For example, women are actually probably much better in terms of like detailed work or like multitasking, right? Men are very focused, so it really depends, right?
Mm.
So, women coming into the Web3 space, happy to see more and more women coming into the Web3 space as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for. I think you put
Mm.
out a point also that what a women can contribute to this space,
Yes.
right? It's
Yeah.
also because like all of us know that the tech space have been largely dominated by the male,
Males, yes.
and a lot of time the male are creating things that from their own perspective they're only solving the male problem.
Mm.
Or for example, that day one of the guests was sharing about like it's very centered. That means a lot of creation in innovation is centered around male
Mm.
because the inventors or the creators are male by itself. For example,
Yeah.
the safety belt, right? The
Yeah.
safety belt is invented like that for
Mm.
men, but for women it doesn't make sense, right? It might
Yes.
even suffocate them, might make them
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable. Why not make the safety belt like the F1 kind of
Yeah.
safety belt, right?
Mm.
So I think when women comes into creating into the Web3 space, especially now in the infancy stage, right? I think
Mm.
there's a lot of things that they can contribute.
Yeah.
And also Web3 talks about they promote diversity and inclusion, right? I think
Mm.
we need the women's voice to really come in because they were not included in the past
Early
century or
stage.
decade,
Yes.
right? Early stage, right? So I think it's good for them to come in. And like you mentioned, there are more and more women in this Web3 space now, especially
Mm.
when I went to Token
Mm.
2049 Singapore.
Yeah.
And when I see it, I was surprised that there are more women there,
Mm.
women founders,
Mm.
even women attendees that's coming.
Mm.
And I see about a good sum of about 20 to 30%. I think
Mm.
really really good because if you have been to the earlier
Yeah.
Web3 event, right, you were like
Events.
even the panel you don't really see a lot of
Yeah.
women
Woman.
speaking.
Correct.
And now you have more, but I hope to see more also. Like this time
Yes.
around, I think Token they don't have much women's speakers,
Mm.
right? And I think coming from your angle is also if let's say more women understand about the back office, about the business side of thing, right, more
Mm.
of them can jump on board. More of
Mm.
them will be able to start their own company as founders
Correct.
instead of being the CMO, being the PR person. I
Yeah.
think more women can jump on board because I think the also the exposure, the
Mm.
education, and also the other thing, and also the reason why I'm running the female founder competition is also to support. And we
Mm.
realize that the most important thing is resources.
Mm.
It's not really available for female founders out there.
Mm-hmm.
And also second thing is the confidence, right?
Mm.
Whether they see that themselves as worthy to become the CEO, to have a tech startup and stuff like that. I think these are all the barriers that we have to break. But I think
Mm.
starting from you, because incorporating companies, right? If let's say we can even reach out to more female founders, educate them what is the right thing to do, I think it's a good start for
Yeah.
them to make their business sustainable, investable,
Yes.
because they may not be very good into the figures, into making sure that it's investable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is why I think it's good to invite you to share another perspective, especially on the back office. So
Yeah.
before we wrap up, right?
Mm.
Any last advice for the women who are interested in pursuing a career in Web3 or even set up a company in Web3?
Just go for it. Just go for it. Don't be afraid. Just try out something new. Even if it fails, just start all over again. It's quite a journey, right? No one actually gets it right the first time. Like even you look at babies, before they can walk, they have to, start learning how to
Sorry.
turn and then
Turn,
start to
yeah,
crawl. Yeah, turn first, then you crawl, then only you can walk, then only you can run. So
mm,
it's a step-by-step basis. It's actually a growth process.
mm,
So just go and start it first. The moment you take action, right, that's where you actually see results coming in, feedback coming in, and then
mm.
that's where you actually tune it, to actually drive it in the direction that you want.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the other thing is also be patient about it, right? A lot of times they just want
Yes.
to like even before they start crawling or flipping, they want to run already. So
Yes.
I think it's very important for
Yeah.
founders, yeah, to
Mm.
understand that. Okay, good. So how can they get connected with you if they have any questions and stuff like that?
Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a DM at LinkedIn, right? I'm also on Twitter as well. So 0x Elaine T, right? So if you have any questions at all, just feel free to DM. Yeah.
No, thanks a lot, Elaine. So for those who want to got connected with Elaine, you can look at the ticker below. You can
Mm,
connect with her website, or you can look out for her in Twitter, or you can
mm,
search for Elaine Tor yeah, on LinkedIn. You'll be able to connect. If not, I will be adding the LinkedIn link to her profile in the description shortly. So once again, thanks, Elaine, for sharing with us the back office essential. Why is it important for
yeah.
startup founders or aspiring startup founders to really come into the Web3 space, and what are the things that they should take note of? It's
Mm,
better for them to set up properly than doing all these things at the very last minute.
yep.
So before we wrap up, now it's
Mm.
your turn for you to post your question of the day out to the next guest. So what will be your question of the day, Elaine?
Hmm. So I think for the next guest, if let's say whatever that you're doing in the Web3 space is fashion trend, right? How will you actually go and accessorize it to make it stand out, in like the most inclusive movement, like for example the most inclusive fashion week, or like the tech
Mm,
movement of the day, like the century. Yeah. So how
okay.
would you actually go and do something about it? Yeah.
Okay, so let me. So how would you phrase your question on here?
Okay, so if let's say whatever you're doing in Web3 is a fashion trend, how would you accessorize it to make it the most stylish and inclusive tech movement?
Okay, so
Mm,
maybe how would you style or
yeah.
accessorize
Mm,
I thought how to spell
yeah.
accessorize or accessorize
Accessorize. Yeah.
accessories with a rise
Yeah.
accessorize the Web3 space or the tech space.
Tech space is also fine. Yeah, I think it's more general. Maybe for the next guest. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm,
Okay, let put Web3 text space.
mm,
Okay,
yeah.
so let me just put it out and show it to you to make sure that it's correct. Okay, so the question of the day posted by Elaine is, how would you style or accessorize the Web3 text space? Is that
Mm,
good?
yep. It's good.
Okay, so this question of the day go out to the next guest. So next guest, get ready to answer this question of the day. I find that this is one
Mm,
of the so far the most challenging question for the question of the day. So this question
yeah.
of the day go out to the next guest, and for those who are tuning in or watching the replay, you guys can also share with us what are your answer to Elaine's question of the day. So once again, thank you, Elaine, for sharing with us all your insights, how can startup get started and
Mm,
set up their back office get the back office set up properly and get all their essential there in place
yeah.
before the investors start knocking on their door, or even for them to start valuating their company. So thanks a lot, Elaine, for your time, and
Yeah.
also for those who are watching Women in Web3 podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Do share this with your female friends so that there are more people, more women can understand more about Web3 and how they can thrive in this amazing space where we promote diversity and inclusion. So thank you everyone,
Right.
and we
Thank
shall see
you.
you in the next episode. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you. Thank you,
Bye
Kenneth. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye.